judge made a directive from his court that an announcement be made and my property go at auction. That was ignored. Now I have a right to know, being that I got served with a do not despoil letter 2 days later by the same judge, why I am being castigated, but that directive was not being followed. That's discriminatory. Discriminatory, look it up. The sole discretion of the treasurer turns into discrimination. The DA told me himself he could do whatever he wants, case by case. Now Jim Seward forwarded an email to help resolve this. I'm looking for redemption. I'm looking to pay my back taxes with the extra penalties that the people this year will be able to do. And also I'm going to offer you an olive leaf, mediation through Catholic Charities. I know the gentleman, he knows me, and there's people praying for all of us. Have a good day.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Approval of the minutes of the April 3rd meeting, which are available online.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Presentation of petitions, communications, and notices.
I have the monthly report for March from ATI for services rendered by Catholic Charities. I have a resolution from the Town of Hartwick Planning Board requesting that the county make section County Route 11 between State Route 205 and State Route 28 a priority in care, upkeep, and funding, and also request that a percentage of the bed tax funds be dedicated to such care and upkeep on that section of road. I have a notice of public hearing to consider the general project plan of the New York State Urban Development Corporation doing business as the ESD Empire State Development for the Glimmerglass Opera Capital Improvements Project in Otsego County. The public hearing will be held by the ESD at the county office building in the boardroom right here, 197 Main Street, Cooperstown, Thursday, May 9th from 10 to 11 to consider this general project.
Okay, we have two special presentations today. First, from our Otsego County Planning Department intern Shane Dagan. I'm sorry.
I'd like to introduce Shane Dagan. Shane's a senior at SUNY Oneonta, and his major is Geology and International Studies. Shane's been with us since September and has been working on updating the county's Housing and Strategic Priority Plan, which was completed in 2009. We've been very fortunate. Shane's a dedicated student and a great worker, and we have the brief presentation, and the full document will be online as soon as we finalize everything. So Shane has been with us through the Paul Lansbury Scholarship Program, which focuses on placing interns in the municipal government. Our department has been very fortunate to have 3 such of those interns, which is a paid internship. So we're very thankful to have Shane with us. And I'll let you do.
I'm going to stand up here.
Yes.
So thank you for having me here today. I'm happy to present this. The full report will be available pretty soon. Okay, so the internship, as mentioned, was funded and made possible by the Paul Lansbury Scholarship Fund in Oneonta. So basically the internship itself I focused on a lot of things, and so I'll take you through the basic structure of that. The first thing I did right coming in September was to summarize Otsego Rural Housing Authority data from a summary, and then use that data to help the county apply for CDBG grant funding. That took a little while, and then through the fall semester I conducted interviews from several agencies and relevant individuals that related to housing, such as Benson Real Estate, Catholic Charities, Opportunities for Otsego, Peter Clark Student Rentals, the Mayor of Oneonta, Habitat for Humanity, United Way, DSS, and the Village of Cooperstown. I then spent a lot of time creating the report and the data in the report. So this involved compiling census data to update the 2009 housing study figures. There were several tables ranging from income to poverty to population, age. I then also collected and compiled data on county sales, bed tax, and permits since 2014. And I created a report with the data mentioned above, interviews, summaries, summaries of previous reports such as the OFO Housing Community Study, and then commentary on action goals and strategies made in the 2009 study. I also summarized and reported on recent housing projects and proposals that are ongoing. And I created more concise and achievable goals and recommendations for the county. So in terms of interviews, there were some points that stood out for needs of the county. Again, this is from everyone interviewed, so there could be some conflicting things, but low and moderate income housing in the city and the village of Cooperstown is needed. We need more professional, high-quality housing. We need newer housing along that note. Additional single-room occupancy space. This is what Catholic Charities provides in their 3 locations. A MICA program. Much of the county homeless population is mentally ill, chemically addicted. People mentioned that they wanted more affordable senior community living centers, more first-floor accessible senior housing so people could age in place. There's a lot of vacant housing in the county, so people mentioned repairing that, especially within the city. And then continuing to apply for more HUD funding. Some of the problems in the county that were mentioned were a lack of available rental units below the HUD fair market rent. So that makes it hard for service agencies to find people housing using their funding. The colleges and the summer baseball camps drive up the rental costs, mainly in the city. The population is aging and requires more senior housing. There's also a lack of economic growth and job opportunities. There's a lack of available professional middle-class housing, and there's a lack of lower-income housing within the city of Oneonta. Some of the recent projects and proposals going on in the county. The RSS 6-ward development is sort of in a proposal stage. It's going through a lot of things right now, but that would be in the 6th ward down by River Street, Duane Street, which would create 64 units potentially of low to middle income housing. The Cooperstown Linden Avenue development is in proposal stage, which is on the border of the town of Otsego and the village of Cooperstown. The Otsego Tiny Home Community is in process. There's a picture of one of them being built right now at SUNY Delhi. There's a Cherry Valley Senior Rental Housing Project, which is nearing its completion stage. The Oneonta Downtown Revitalization Initiative is currently funding proposals, and so hopefully we see some of the upper stories being repaired and more people living there, professional class. The Westland Apartment Complex in Oneonta on Chestnut Street has been completed, which is higher professional class housing. And Oneonta Heights, which is 60 units of elderly and also low-income housing, has been completed in 2009, I believe. This is hard to read, but we'll see more figures later on. So now we're moving on to the sales data that I compiled, and this is from Otsego County Real Property. So from the period of 2014 to 2018, Route Corridor saw the largest amount of sales, 973. Route 7 I-88, which is, so the Route 28 corridor is Milford, Hartwick, Middlefield, Cooperstown, and Otsego, which is what I focus on a lot. Route 7 I-88 got at 839 sales. Oneonta area, the city and the town had 970. Route 20 had 581, and Route 51 had 810. This is a little bit easier to see. So this is the average and median sale prices from 2014 to 2018 for the entire county. The highest average sale price took place in 2015 is $193,144. The lowest price was in 2016, right after that at $140. But more indicative is the highest median sale price was recently in 2018 at $120,106, and the lowest was in 2016 at $106,382. So as you can see, they're pretty steady, and there's not a lot of changes really. The number of sales in the whole county is also pretty steady, and it's actually declining. The number of sales in 2016 was 886, and the lowest number was in 2014 at 706. The total number of sales we've had in this 5-year period is 4,173. And then focusing on the Route 28 corridor, which is those towns mentioned, which has a lot of influence from the summer baseball industry and the tourism industry in the county. The average and median sale prices have held pretty steady, with the average price decreasing 2014 it was 317,000. In 2016 it was 199,422. The highest median sale price was recently in 2018 at 185,000, and the lowest was in 2015 143,500. The number of sales is following a very similar trend to the entire county. In 2015 it was 236, and then in the year prior it was only 166. The total number of sales just in this area during this period was 973. And moving on to bed tax, we thought that bed tax was a good indicator of how well the tourism industry is doing, because this is what the county collects per night, basically, that someone stays in a rental or something that they're staying in. So that's held pretty steady in the whole county. It's actually dipped in 2018. 2017 it was at its highest at 1,915,000, and then it dipped down to 1,596,000 in 2018. And this is from the Otsego Treasurer's Office. This just shows their monthly deposits, and the reason I put this on here is just to show that the summer months leading up to were the highest, and the highest month every year is September by a long shot. The bed tax deposits specifically for the Route 28 corridor have been steadily increasing. The highest deposits, I worded those wrong. The lowest deposits were in 2014, 999,000, and the highest deposits were in 2018 at $1.5 million about. And if you think about the numbers, Route 28 is a large portion of the entire county's bed tax deposits, expectedly. Permit data. This shows just how well people are building commercial home. Just a couple notes on this data is that if you look at the whole county, it's actually missing the town and city of Oneonta. It's also missing the town and village of Otsego, and Worcester. And that's because the county doesn't collect that data, but I was able to get the town of Milford for the Route 28. Also, my home just includes built houses, so modular manufactured new homes, whereas commercial I decided to include additions or alterations. But there's been kind of a up and down in this. Most permits for houses were in 2016 at 112. Most commercials were also in 2016 at 62. And the lease permits for houses were in 2017 at 86. The lease commercial permits were also in 2017 at 45, but that's on an upswing again. Specifically in Route 28 corridor, again, this is a large share of those permits issued, again, excluding the Oneonta area. Most home permits were in 2016, again, at 43. Most commercial permits, also 2016 at 38. And the lease home permits for both were in 2014, 29 for home, and 26 for commercial properties. So this is more of the data that the 2009 housing study had that I thought was worth highlighting to update. So your vacant units, I thought this was important to show, about 20% of the units in 2017 and 24% of the units in the county in 2017 were considered vacant. The homeowner vacancy rate has decreased slightly, and the rental vacancy rate has increased slightly. That's just how the assessor defines, or how the census defines what a type of property is and whether it's vacant. Read by the definition. So the percent change is good for the homeowner vacancy rate. The total housing units have increased slightly, and the amount of occupied units have decreased.
Question?
Sure.
Percent vacant, 20% in 2010 and 24% in 2017. What exactly is vacant? What units are you describing there?
So this is what that is basically.
Oh, the next one. Okay.
So that's a good question. So the breakdown, before you get scared that 20% of the units in the county are vacant,
Yeah.
right? So 11% of 58% of the vacant units are seasonal recreational.
Oh.
So if you're only renting in the summer, that is considered vacant, 58.8% of that. So 11.76% of the housing in the county is seasonal summer recreational. But there are some higher numbers. There's a lot of, there are 10% for rent are vacant, 8.3% for sale are vacant. So it's not as bad as it looks, but there still are a lot of vacant units in the county. Housing age, almost half, 42.7% of housing in this county was built before 1940. So it's going to need urgent repair, and then if you add up things that are built even before that, we only have 1.4% of housing being built since 2010, and only 8.5% being built since 2000 to 2009. In terms of cost burden analysis, you're defined as cost burden if you're paying more than 30% of your monthly income on your housing, your rent, or your mortgage. So for renters, 55.16% of renters in Otsego County are cost burden. It's pretty significant. And obviously, the lower income you are, the higher chances your cost burden in the county. Only 0.7, making 75,000 are cost burden. But in the county, there are 3,062 people paying more than 30% on their rent. And for owners, that's lower at 22.05%, so it's a lot better. 3,871 are considered cost burden. And the Route 28 corridor was the worst for owners, with 26.88% cost burden. That's probably due to the increased costs associated with the tourism industry, I would guess. The housing rental index, which is table 22 in that report, basically this just takes your median income, takes your average monthly income, and shows what your affordable rent would be, and then compares that to what the fair market rent is defined as for Otsego County by Housing and Urban Development. So for median income renters in the county, they can afford $1,667 rent a month, and that is well above the fair market rent. So median income earners in the county should find the county affordable. But like I said, that's only for median earners, so that doesn't really show the true population. Housing affordability, so this is the next table, but I just want to explain it first. It's a ratio set up between the median value of your unit and your income. So if you make $150,000 a year, your property shouldn't cost more than $300,000 to be considered affordable. Or if you make $50,000, it shouldn't cost more than $100,000. So for Otsego in 2017, that number was 2.77, which is not considered affordable. But in 2010, it was higher at 2.84. And this is that data. So I also pulled out the Oneonta area and Route 28 corridor. As you can see, while Otsego County is not considered affordable, those are much worse. Route 28 corridor in 2017 had a ratio of 3.6, and the Oneonta area had a 3.08 ratio. These are obviously estimates from the Census Bureau, so there is some error associated with it, but it is getting better since 2010. So using all that data, using the interviews, using all the information I gathered, I created some goals and some recommendations for the county, which is a lot less than the original report had created and a lot more, I think, achievable. I think the county should encourage municipalities to apply for funding for home repair and rehabilitation. Also continue to seek countywide funding to transition to targeted rehabs with hamlets and villages. The town of New Lisbon is applying for CDBG money right now, and if they get that, it could be a huge help in repairing homes and allowing people to stay in their homes and not put an increase on our senior centers, things like that. Encourage the development of housing through incentives, collaboration for low-income individuals and families below that HUD fair market rental rate, which don't get captured in some of the service agencies that we have. Also encourage the development of more affordable senior housing. Coordinate housing activities with shared information among municipalities. There's really no central coordinating agency or anything for housing in the county. There are some committees, but every agency and every group is sort of doing their own thing. It would help if we had a sort of a central direction, maybe from the county board or from somewhere. Continue to maintain a presence in the continuum of care and other related groups to push for more federal funding. We haven't really got any money, or very little money, from the continuum of care of the southern tier, but we should maintain a presence in there. And then some important considerations that the county should keep in mind. The Route 28 corridor and summer rental market seems to be stabilizing. It's not really growing as we thought it was, so we shouldn't rely on exponential growth, and that will have an impact on our bed tax and our just county operation and sales and stuff like that. It's more cost effective to rehabilitate houses than it is to rebuild, and there are still plenty of vacant houses that we have the potential to rebuild for people. Otsego County's population is aging, and it will require senior housing. Much of the housing stock in Otsego County is old, almost half is built before World War II. So rehabilitation and repair funding will be required in the future. Job growth is really needed, as a lot of people in Oneonta mentioned, to create a market for professional class housing that we're trying to create. Otsego County is losing a lot of population due to migration, which is in the report. and has a 16.1% poverty rate, which is fairly high, but not that high if you compare it to neighboring counties. Effort is needed to ensure that there are high-paying jobs and living accommodations to attract qualified workforce population. And I just want to note that in the report, every table that is listed there has the neighboring counties compared, and it also has every corridor that I spoke, 51, 20, 88, Oneonta area, and 28. They're all broken down and compared in every table, and that should be available soon. That's all I have, but if you have any questions.
Maybe planning, is there something you could put together for us to, when we go to our town board meetings, information on where they can apply for these housing grants,
Yes.
and so we can maybe encourage them to do that?
Right. New Lisbon actually contacted us with their efforts, and we assisted as much as possible
Right.
with them. The CFA opens today, the Consolidated Funding Application opens today, so I would suggest people going to the workshops to educate themselves on that. But we're available for assistance if anyone really has it.
How long is that CFA open for?
It's July 26th is the deadline for applications.
Okay.
There isn't there's no specific housing in that one.
Oh, there's no
It's
housing?
more public infrastructure, facilities, things like that.
All right.
Housing
Even
is
still,
separate
but
program, but there will be more coming up.
I think it would be helpful when we go to our town board meetings if we could provide them with some guidance and information or where to go.
Okay. What's available? Sure.
Thank you.
Village Unit Dover for 3 years now, got grants for private housing improvements. I'll find out from the mayor where he's been getting that every year and forward it to the board members.
Okay.
Very nice job, first of all. I think it's very impressive. And this is something I'm interested in. Thought kind of experiment, say that, let's see, job growth is needed in conjunction with the creation of more professional grade housing. And on the other, we're told that, well, we need jobs so that we can justify building more houses, but then we're told we need to build the housing so that we can attract the jobs. And any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, it really is kind of both. I don't know how to. So, in terms of the professional class housing, there is a lot of available housing, I think, within the city. I think part of the problem is that there is available housing within Cooperstown and Oneonta. When people move in, they're pushing out and they're driving up costs for people that are already living here and that are lower income. So, like, we do need to develop some sort of professional class housing. But I think, in my personal opinion, and just based on the data, there is more of a need for lower income housing than the county. So I think that should be more of a priority if anything's chosen. And I think that, people that are coming here with professional class jobs will find a place to live. But, yeah.
I think you probably found that a lot of the lower income housing is substandard and in great need of repair, I think, is the overall county.
Right, yeah, it is.
Yeah, just to add to that, Shane put together our survey, I think we had 374 people responded. The majority of those were, dilapidated or otherwise substandard conditions, and that's every time, so, right on point.
Just to clarify your quarters, for instance, the Route 28 corridor, how wide are those, and are they going town boundaries?
So
So
I
in some
changed that
cases-
to says no, they didn't use the boundaries, but everything is municipal. So.
That's what I was thinking, just to make sure. And it sounds, how big an issue, the vacancy rate is huge because of the summer rentals. And those summer rentals take away from year-round housing.
So it'd be like about 8-9% if you took that out of it. Yeah.
So, in your opinion, how do we address that? Because those summer rentals obviously impact the economy in the summer and the bed tax, but they are taking away from, those are viable housing for moderate to low-income people. If they were available.
I think that market is pretty much stabilizing. I mean, even talking to real estate agencies and just looking at the trends, is that I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of new development with summer rentals. I mean, there might be, but I don't think so. So I think the county keeps, repairing houses and like creating opportunities. I don't think that's going to become more of a problem than it already is right now.
Thank you. Any other questions? We appreciate it, and very nice job, and appreciate your work. Okay, now we have a presentation from Don Smyers from Cornell Cooperative Extension.
Well, good morning. My name is Don Smyers. I'm the Executive Director of Cornell Cooperative Extension of Schoharie and Otsego counties with offices here in Cooperstown and in Cobleskill. I want to thank the chair and the reps here for giving us an opportunity to talk a little bit about our dairy, field crop, and livestock team, specifically in light of the correspondence I've been having with the reps here on some of our financial issues running our organization and trying to offer, I think, core services to particularly the agricultural audience. Before I go any further, I want to recognize that we have a guest here that I've invited, Paul O'Connor. Paul, if you just wave your hand or stand up. Paul is the Assistant Director at Cornell Cooperative Extension for Field Operations, and as such oversees all county operations, and of course we're one of those. So I thank you, Paul, for coming. Paul will be available if there's some questions that he can answer on behalf of Cornell Cooperative Extension at the administration level. And with that, I'll just point out, everyone knows Jim Barber. He's our ag implementation specialist. He's funded on a special contract that we have with the county for the Ag and Farmland Protection Plan goals and initiatives. Other than that, we do not have an ag educator in this county. That went years ago with funding decreases. But what we have relied on and what we've leveraged to the best of our abilities is a regional Cornell team, which is a team that serves several counties in this region, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. That has been the basis of how we can help on our rural economy from agriculture. And so with that, and I must say that the ag team is stronger today than it has been in many years because there's actually been some increase in staffing, which can provide more core services to the agricultural community. So at that point, I'd like to introduce Kevin Gano. He's our field crop specialist and team manager, and he's going to introduce his team, and they'll have a presentation, and afterwards, if there's some questions that any of us can answer, I'd be happy to participate, and I know they will as well. So I'll just go over here.
I think I'll let you, over here?
Yeah, that's fine.
So thank you for this opportunity, and I'm going to begin by introducing team members. To my right is Dave Balbian, who's the dairy specialist on the team. Ashley McFarland, who's the livestock specialist. And then our most recent hire is Nicole Tamel, who's our farm business management specialist. And Dawn mentioned that we cover a number of counties. We actually cover 8 counties. We go from Madison to Schoharie and Shenango to Saratoga. We treat that area as a whole. We do programming across county lines, much as the industry acts. They do business across county lines. It's about a $500 million industry across those 8 counties, of which Otsego County is a $56 million piece. So I described that we work across a large area, but given that there's some structure to what we do, and I just thought I'd hit on this briefly. We are Cornell employees. Peter Landry is our immediate supervisor. There is an administrative management group, of which Dawn is a part of. That is the executive directors of the extension associations that are in our team, and then also Peter. And so they look after the budget, the staffing, and then with that comes the local accountability of what we do. We have a program committee that provides the program direction. This is it is farmers, it is agribusiness people across all 8 counties that serve to guide the educational programs that we do. And then from a funding standpoint, it comes from or through not only the local extension associations, but also Cornell administration. And then this team is actually charged with coming up with some of their own dollars to conduct this programming through grants and contracts. I like to show this relief map because I think it gets at what our agriculture is in the 8 counties that we serve. I guess I just look, what do you think that map tells you about our agriculture?
Small scale, small to medium size.
Well,
Hilly
small, go ahead.
Hilly topography.
Hilly topography, which means at the end of the day, we're really growing forage crops, hay crops that we can grow, pasture that we can grow on those hillsides. It's not that there isn't land that can support vegetable production, fruit production, but probably 70% of the agriculture across the counties that we serve is the dairy, livestock, and field crops. And it's forage-based. So I'll just take a moment to, I won't assume that everybody knows what that means, so I'm going to just take a moment to explain. It is, what are forages? So we're looking at the grasses, alfalfa clovers, and even corn silage that provide a digestible fiber of which the livestock in our area can utilize, ruminant animals can utilize. So whether it's dairy, whether it's beef, sheep, or goats, these are the species that can handle or that we can utilize to take the forages that we grow. It's this digestible fiber that they are well equipped to handle and can make milk or gains off of. That's not the only crops or livestock. Actually, it's also going to take questions about hogs. I'm not going to do just forages. I'm going to do grain crops, which not only is corn, but soybeans and small grains. So that's sort of the breadth of what we cover. We've got a mission statement. It's to provide high-quality educational programs to the industry. And I view it this way. We are doing educational programs so that people can make better management decisions on their farms. To me, it's not just giving people an answer, it's giving them information so that when they leave a meeting, they can go back, and it's not just maybe an immediate decision on the farm, but it's down the road. They've got information that they can carry with them. So who is that industry? It is the dairy farms. It is farms in our area, dairy farms, livestock farms, and field crop farms. It is also the ag industry, and I think that gets missed sometimes. They are our multiplier. They suggest, we put out information, and they suggest to their clientele to take advantage of programs or information that they have learned. So again, it's the feed dealers, it's the machinery dealers, it's the crop dealers, it's the veterinarians that take information that we supply, and they give farms maybe that little extra nudge to utilize some of that information. We also work with agencies and organizations, Natural Resource Conservation Service, Soil and Water Conservation Districts, Farm Service Agency, NICAM, the Upper Susquehanna Coalition. We have worked with all of those groups over time. Just to give you a flavor for what we do, Dawn mentioned that we've had additions to our team, and we have in Nicole and Ashley. And what I wanted to show was, what this meant a lot to me was just in the past 2 years bringing them on board, what additional benefit all of you get and we get in terms of programming. Since October 1st, and this is really our winter programming season through October 1st of last year through the 31st of March this year, we conducted 40 meetings and had over 729 people participate. And just in Otsego County alone, 24 meetings and 116 people participating. This, adding Nicole and Ashley to what Dave and I do, is really added to the program we can do. Because if you look at the type of meetings we've done, Dairy Day, Corn Day, some of the things that Dave and I have always traditionally done and worked with on farms, we've now been able to add to some of the livestock sessions that Ashley's doing and some of the farm business management meetings that Nicole is conducting. So one of the great things in the past 2 years is how we've been able to add to our capacity. And with that, we're going to cover a few of the programs that we've been working on for the past year. Dave, I'll let you.
Which one is the advanced?
I think I've been using that.
This one here.
Okay.
excuse me, our Central New York Dairy Day program has been going on now for, gee, I'm trying to think, in Cooperstown. We hold it at the Otsego Resort Hotel, which is a great venue for producers to be able to take advantage of some of the, I guess I would say, off-season, utilizing that facility. We do it in the second Tuesday in March, and we typically get around 100 people attend that, and it's a great opportunity for people to not only, we have a trade show to talk with some of those vendors, but every year we have a little bit of a different emphasis for the dairy industry. This year we talked about the economics and strategies of getting cows pregnant. I won't get into the details, but to produce milk, the cow has to have a calf, and if she has a calf about every year, that's more economical than her having a calf every year and a half or two. And it's not as easy as you might think. So this was our emphasis this year. Just to give you an idea, even at the low milk prices we've struggled with in the industry since 2015, at $16 a hundredweight, for every 100 cows, if they can improve the pregnancy in their herd by one heat cycle, which is 21 days, that should net them about $25,000 of additional income. It all comes down to dollars and cents for these farms. And I guess over the years, like I said, we've covered a variety of things. Nutrition is a big part of it. A typical dairy will spend 50 to 75% of their expense on feed costs. To get into precision feed management, this is something that has been kind of an ongoing effort across our region. And some of our initial efforts actually started right in this area here. Looking at the quality of water in the Chesapeake Bay, and you say, well, what does that have to do with feeding cows? Well, you put nutrients into cows in the form of feed, and the two most important ones we're concerned about with water quality are nitrogen and phosphorus. And guess what? It all doesn't go into milk, or it also all doesn't go into meat. There's kind of a back end to the cow. So the things that we can do to improve our efficiency at use of those nutrients, so there's less going out the back end, we can really reduce the risk of water quality. So this has been an important effort. In fact, a year ago, in a national dairy magazine, one of the farms in this county was featured with some of the efforts that we put forth and some of the great improvements that they were able to make. I thought I'd talk just a minute about the state of the dairy industry. Any of you that have been kind of paying attention about agriculture in the Northeast, and especially New York State, the dairy industry is the biggest economic driver of agriculture. And if you take a look at that chart there, you can see that from 2014, we've been in basically a pretty depressed state as far as milk prices. So I guess I would just say in general, we're going through a major transition in the industry, not only here locally, but in the Northeast and across the country. And actually, I guess I would say across the world. The trend of fewer but larger farms has accelerated. It's been there for a long time. The economics of production have been pretty difficult. Every farm has their own unique set of circumstances. And I guess I would just say, unless people have questions, there's been a compilation of international events starting in 2014 where we've had record milk prices that have caused milk prices to be depressed, and they continue to be depressed. But that's caused many producers to make the decision to get out of business. On average, the ones that remain have gotten a little bit bigger in general, and some of this land has gone into other uses, other types of non-dairy livestock, which kind of really fits well with some of the additions to our team here. And I will turn this over now to Nicole.
Thanks, Dave. June 11th, we are actually going to be hosting a meeting for risk management workshop, a risk management workshop in Otsego County. We're going to do it in 4 different counties the week of June 10th. Dave and I are going to be working with Sandy Ferry Scott, who is the USDA FSA Otsego County Director. She is also charged with a few other counties in the region to be that executive director. And we're going to be talking about the dairy margin coverage programming that will be coming out in June for our dairy producers. Currently, we do not have a lot of information about it. However, the USDA did just release a tool. It's on the USDA website. We did put it up on the Facebook page yesterday in order for producers to see if what kind of eligibility and what type of information they need in order to be part of that program. So true sign-up will be the start, June 17th. But what we're trying to do is educating people on minimizing their risk through risk management, some risk management tools, and then utilizing this program for some smaller farmers. So with that, if there's any other questions, we can go to Ashley.
So we sign up
Pardon me?
The time
The sign-up will be starting on June 17th.
But where?
June 17th, all of our farmers will be able to go to USDA FSA office, and they will have to sign up at the office starting on June 17th. The June 11th meeting, our producers will actually get, we usually send stuff out via Facebook. We send online through our listserv. Our producers are notified, as well as flyers. And so people are very, very well aware of a lot of the programs that we do. So June 17th is the true sign up for that. And that, I'm not quite sure how long that goes for, but it is the start date of June 17th for our producers.
Okay, so on to livestock, which I covered. So we have a Central New York feeder calf pool that has been held in Otsego County for 3 years now. I recently joined 2 years ago, so I started helping out with this as soon as I joined on. So this is a producer-driven group that consists of 20 farms right now. A lot of these farms were dairy farmers that switched over to beef cattle. They sold out of their dairy and they went into the beef. So 11 of these farms are located in Otsego County. Most of these farms are 25 to 50 brood cows, so they are small operations, mostly family farms. This is a supplemental income. Maybe they're retired or this is a part-time thing on the side. So our goal for this group is to build up a relationship of having high-quality feeder calves and to capture the best value for these calves rather than selling them to our sale barns, which tend to dock our producers quite a lot. So we had a feeder calf pool back in December. So I just picked some 3 random lots. So we take the pool of calves and we grade them live, obviously. So we go there to the farm. We have a USDA grader representative there, and she will go through and grade them like kind of calves. So like basically black calves will go together, red calves will go together. Their weights we look at, and then we sell them according to what we just came up with. So lot 7, for example, was a group of steers. That's what the S stands for. And they were ML2s, and they weighed 734 pounds on average for that lot. So there was 3 calves in that lot. So I did the comparison from a local sale barn, which is like our hub of New York State, and we came out with the net was $10.35. So that was $535 difference that our producers are making over sending to a sale barn. So you can look at the other 2 below. So our high price was $1.46 a pound, our low price was $1.01, and our average was $1.26. So that being said, our producers had that money to go back in their pocket, and beef prices aren't the greatest right now, so this is like a positive to put back into the producers' pockets. So then on to forage.
And we'll finish up with this. If you had seen us yesterday, all of us were out and about in the 8 counties that we work in because of this project. We try to help folks decide when they should start doing their first cutting of hay. And all that may sound easy, it really isn't when someone makes that decision. So we kind of try to prompt them with that. And so just to point out, so the first cutting of hay is 50% of the dry matter off that field in a year. And so to make that the highest quality as you can is very important. And it also sets up when the other cuttings get made. So you want to get that done on time because you have other cuttings that will be made. So what we do is actually we go out and measure alfalfa height, which is a great indicator of fiber levels, not only in the alfalfa, but of grasses nearby. And it's very simple. The higher the fiber, the lower the quality because there's less energy, less fiber. We're going to have more energy, and there's a sweet spot in there of which we get good yields, and then we still get good quality. And that's what we shoot for when we present this. So we go out, we measure alfalfa height, and then what we do is we get back to producers of what fields are doing in their area. We do that by looking at what county, what town. We'll give a road name, and then we'll give the elevation, because hey, given a given road might have quite a change in elevation. And that will let them line up, if they're in that neighborhood, of maybe where their alfalfa and their grasses are at. So we put this out again by email. We've got some folks who look to get this information by regular mail. And we do this usually it's Tuesdays in May, but this year, it's hard to believe with the weather, as cool and as damp as it's been, we've actually had enough growth that we thought we ought to get this out, and I sent it out by email last night, that we need to make people aware before we do this next Tuesday, we do this again Tuesdays in May, that they may need to think about actually making a cutting. And you say, well, maybe here in Otsego County it seems like it's cooler than that. But we've got other regions, other parts in our region that are lower elevation or a little bit warmer, and we're already seeing there's some growth that says in the next week they may want to cut grasses. The difference that I have up there, like from year to year, just between 2017 and 2018 at the same location, there was a 2-week difference in when people should cut. So it just doesn't come down to a particular calendar day. It's looking at some of these factors that we do, which is with the alfalfa. I'll leave you with this. So what is the value of our services? Well, here's a way to look at it. If you look at the dollar value of product equal to what it costs for, let's say, Otsego County to participate in our team, what I've listed is what's the production from dairy cows for a year, that value of milk sold. It takes 10 cows to produce milk that's equivalent to what is put into our team from Otsego County. It takes 80 acres of corn, or 65 head of beef cattle, or some combination of the above to equal that $40,000. So I often point out to people that when we have conversations with the farms that we work with, we're talking in many thousands of dollars in what they're doing. It's not just $5, $500. You know, some of our conversations begin somewhere around $5,000. So it's the dollars involved, it's the business around that. At that, I will finish, and thank you for your time.
There must be some questions that the team or I can ask. Keith?
Does the Amish community reach out to the crop and field team?
Yes, I can just give examples, and one was that I actually just was on an Amish farm yesterday where someone had left and they had moved actually from Herkimer County to Otsego County to a farm, and yeah, we work with the Amish community. That's just an example.
No, I was just pointing to you.
Oh, okay. Organic. Now, do you have a large organic element in your?
Yes. So that and work with. And it's Dave, I'm thinking of somebody might in particular in Otsego County, it's an organic farm that we work with. Grass-fed.
I guess I would say many people think transitioning from traditional dairy to organic dairy is going to be your salvation, and it has been very advantageous in the past. Those prices have dropped as well. So the advantage has pretty much disappeared. The only exception, I guess I would say, is the organic grass-fed market. I don't expect that advantage to be there forever, but that seems to be an area where there's still a good economic advantage. In fact, I worked with a producer from before he even bought a farm. He was renting a place in Shenango County, moved into Otsego County, and I think he started out with about 15 or 20 cows. He's up to about 150 cows now. He's an organic grass-fed herd. He has done extremely well for himself. I've worked with him on rehabilitating this farm that he bought as far as the facilities. There were holes in the roof and everything, and he's been doing wonderful.
You're talking beef or dairy?
Dairy, yep.
What about your grass-fed beef?
There's a lot of grass-fed beef.
Yeah.
Predominantly, that's what we have in Otsego County. A lot of people, because we have hillsides, so they're putting, pastures up and stuff like that. So a lot of grass-fed.
Thank you.
Question. So I know you provide a valuable service to the 8-county region. Can you briefly explain for the board how the financial breakdown works to participate in your program?
So for counties to put in, their share of that is based on farms. It'll be cow number, livestock number, or acres. And so that's how it's divided up. And Cornell has a share of that. and then the team again has a share of that.
It's official ag census.
Yes, we use the ag census data then to drive this, how many farms and how many animals or acres, then for the county to come up with a share. Go ahead.
May I follow up? So when you're doing that, so like as in this year, that new ag census was released, to my understanding. And so do you provide notice to your 8-county region of the any change in numbers and expected, you know?
So what will happen, I think we have an administrative management group, I mentioned that, we have a meeting next week. What will typically happen is that there will be discussion of changes in the census, and it will usually be at least a year before that actually kicks in. So to answer your question, typically, yes, I wouldn't expect any different. That usually there's like about a year buffer between the census being announced and then when there's changes.
And so are counties able to kind of, you know, jointly apply for fund, you know, like kind of funding with different sources of revenue streams to, you know, sustain participation? So like, let's say, you know, we're expected to kick in, you know, 54,000, for example, and we have that year window, and is it possible to like, do we directly appropriate that money? If you expect to like, you know, apply for grants to do that? It's kind of a question for both of you.
Well, I think finding
Go ahead.
finding grants that fund existing programs is difficult. We need a long-term partnership, and that's why we have traditionally, for 25 years now in this county, looked for using some appropriation to help fund this. However, let's talk about the value from a different perspective. So not only do all the counties pay a share in, so does Cornell University. They pay another big share. So it reduces it. And let's talk about one more share, and that is New York State pays the benefits of these individuals. Now, we know benefit costs can be somewhere like 50% or 55% of one's gross salary. So if you look at that, that's not being paid for in any of our requests for funding for this team. So this is, I think, New York State's legislature's intent to provide a really good program effort from Cornell and the land-grant university systems at what I would say is a nominal cost for what that true cost of that program is, so that it benefits rural counties such as Otsego.
I mean, we are always looking for, I know this maybe doesn't answer your question directly, but we are always looking for grants and contracts that we can do that are appropriate to the programming that we're doing. And so Dave mentioned precision feed management. So over the years, we've probably gotten at least $500,000 over like 10 years to do precision feed management. So any opportunity we can find to come up with money to do that, we do. But there's, I'm trying to think. Nicole, you've got a risk management grant right now. I've got one that's looking at new insects for soybeans. That's, we'll pick these up, grants and contracts throughout the year. So we're always looking for ways we can bring dollars to our team, help offset salaries, but then also maybe offer some benefit to the producers in terms of forage testing or something like that.
Right, and that's been important. I think that the dairy program on the phosphorus and nitrogen that went into Chesapeake Bay, and how that funding really was a very significant piece for this part of the state. So we're always looking for those. They do. They typically have to look at USDA or one of those agricultural agencies that are funding research.
Your Farm Viability Institute is one that we commonly go to. That I guess I'll say we're competitive, and we like to think we're competitive to get those kinds of grants. I mean, we don't do bad at it. I have to say that. Yes.
A couple quick things, and this is more dairy related. About 4 or 5 years ago, our company, we do research and development, product development for food companies. We were asked to look at potentially taking basic milk, if you will, and if there was a way to upgrade its potential marketability and its perception, if you will, into the markets. One of the things that we looked at was the CLA, if you're familiar with grass-fed bovine, and in the levels of CLA, conjugated linoleic acid in the milk, and the research that was done over in Europe with its ability to help modify BMI, body mass indexes. It was an interesting concept. We worked with it. We actually fortified some milk using outside sources of CLA. And to me, it was a great opportunity to make this, to give milk, if you will, an even healthier and perspective. It was being generated by the New York City school systems, believe it or not. And then we presented a bunch of stuff and it just kind of fell by the wayside. But it was just an interesting concept that I thought had really traction, if you will, and never knew what ever happened to it or whatever. And so it's just something for thought. I would love to talk about that more in depth. I think it would be a great opportunity for our current dairy markets here to look at revitalizing that or reevaluating that whole program. I mean, it was drink milk to get healthy again in a whole other realm. So
I'm not a human nutrition person, but the whole time you were looking at that, I was seeing the same thing. Dr. Dale Bauman at Cornell did some research where he looked at it. As you know, CLA is going to only come from ruminants.
Right.
Okay, so it's going to be in the fat, the butter fat,
right,
and the fat of the meat. Higher in grass-fed animals, but
yep,
pretty good even in conventional animals. He did some work looking at how to feed cows in confinement during the winter to increase the CLA levels, even above what you might get in grass-fed. And as you know now, things are changing in human nutrition. Whole milk is being recommended, and fat in milk is not necessarily heart unhealthy. In fact, it can be healthy, and healthy from a standpoint of weight because it tends to fill you up. I wish I had control of the marketing people because that seems to be what drives our economy and drives things. And you're right, it doesn't seem like it's ever really gained any traction. I know there were some farms across the country that thought that might be a niche for them to do some of their own marketing and processing by enhancing CLA levels. It's never really gained the traction that we had hoped, but yeah, I don't know what else to say.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
I have a question, if it hopefully won't get too technical, but you had mentioned that since 2014 there were international forces that were at work which were driving down the price of milk for the farms. I was wondering if you could maybe go into a little bit of detail on what those might be and what might the hope be that we could have a turnaround in that at a time before all of the smaller farms are actually driven out of business.
Well, 2014, we had record high milk prices. That was predominantly driven by the fact that China was buying dairy products like crazy. Now, they're not buying milk in a jug or a carton, they're buying powdered milk. That's how milk tends to be traded across countries internationally. So that drove the price up really high. So I guess I would say not only farmers, but any business does not like to really pay taxes. So when you're making money, what do you do with that money? I mean, you use it for living and everything else, but you tend to reinvest in the business. Reinvesting in the business tends to increase your output, especially in the dairy industry. So our production was turning up because of that. At the same time, in 2014, if you remember, what happened over in Russia? Anybody remember? Russia invaded Ukraine. And people say, what does that have to do with the price of milk? Well, Russia invaded Ukraine. The European Union was sending a lot of dairy products, mostly cheese, into Russia. The US and the European Union put some sanctions on Russia. What did Russia do? They couldn't do much to the US, but they certainly could hurt the European Union. They basically closed the door. Fewer but larger farms. That trend is going to keep on going.
And then just one last thing, the new trade deal with US, Canada, Mexico is that going to have any direct impact or measurable impact in New York from your perspective?
Not very significant. I guess I would say if things go badly, it could have negative impacts. There's probably not much positive from where we have been. Most people think that China is the biggest buyer of dairy products in the US. It's actually Mexico. So we need to maintain that relationship. The European Union has been pretty aggressive with all the stuff that's been going on with tariffs and trying to get their foot into the door. If we lose that market to Europe, we're going to be in trouble. Canada, there's a few things that have happened over there, but I guess I would say not that significant from the standpoint of affecting prices. Okay. Maintaining our relationship with Mexico is really important for the dairy industry.
Thanks.
So my question was, I was writing this down as fast as I could. I think you mentioned that Otsego County had a $56 million industry Is that dairy or all of agriculture?
That's all.
All of agriculture?
That's according to the census.
That's according to the census. That's according to recent census.
And that 56 million, that's what, business activity, that's not profit?
That's
farm
product
gate.
sold. Yeah, farm
That's
gate,
farm
product
gate.
sold.
It's gross receipts?
Yes.
Gross, okay.
Yep.
And then I had another question about the feeder calf operation. Forgive me, I didn't quite understand what it is that you do that allows the calf prices to be higher.
Sure.
What are you?
So we didn't go into depth because we have time restriction, but so we have these calves vaccinated. We also grade them. So if you go to a sale barn, calves can just come from wherever. Basically, they're shuffled. A lot of them are shuffled from one sale barn to the other across the state. Down in Pennsylvania, they come up, stuff like that. So we modeled the West Virginia model, where they take calves from the farm. They're weaned, they're vaccinated, they're castrated properly. So they're healthy coming in here, and we pool them at one location. The buyer then comes and buys them. So we have a tele-auction, so it's an online auction. So the animals don't leave the farm until we pool them. So basically our whole thing is that they're coming in there, they're healthy, we follow them up, and basically what's happened is those calves have never gotten sick. I'm not saying that they'll never get sick, but they haven't gotten sick because they've had that immunity. It's kind of like a vaccine for a human. Like if you vaccinate for something, the less likelihood of you getting it, you know, stuff like that.
So there's a very strong protocol that these producers have to follow to be involved in this auction.
Yep, it's 2 rounds of vaccines. We check up on that to make sure that they've done it properly. We try to work with producers. We've gained a lot of interest. We're hoping this sale this fall is going to be a lot bigger than it has been. So I think there's a real, need for this in this area.
So you're just, essentially you're facilitating the creation of primo calves?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's also,
Primo price.
but let me add this, it's also creating a new niche industry because these calves are being raised, we hope, in larger numbers so that it attracts buyers from greater distances because they're buying graded, high-quality calves. That's the West Virginia model. So rather than relying on local buyers, we want to get to the point where we might have buyers across state lines pinpointing this sale.
So also the goal is that there's a lot of small farmers with beef cattle, so they have maybe 10, head to sell. So we want to be able to have that opportunity for them to be participating in the sale, rather than just selling to a local sale barn, taking a risk. Because if there's not the buyers there, they could get 80 cents a pound when they should be getting $1.40 a pound for those calves. So it's a less risk by, going with us. It is a little bit more work because they have to vaccinate, but you should be vaccinating already, so.
The buyers want to buy a lot.
Yeah.
They want to buy
Yeah.
a certain number of calves in a certain
Right.
size, and that's what they're looking for.
And the
Because they
buyers-
need consistency as it moves through their feeder and
Right,
breakfast.
right, because you don't want to go to the store and not get a consistent steak every time. Or to a buyer, say you go to a farmer's market, and you want to go back to that same person because you got a consistent steak. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, we're trying to make it consistent. So then the buyers keep coming back, and the buyers want vaccinated calves, because they don't want them to get home and get sick, so.
So I noticed that you had some incredibly valuable data about the number of farms in Otsego that you reached and the number of people you reached through your workshops. Can you describe how easy or difficult, was it easy for you guys just to turn that data around? Was it particularly difficult?
Well, that data that you saw is the data that we track, which is just participants. I mean, we, got asked for registration, and so we track that kind of, we track that. I mean, we ask people so we know who's coming to our meetings and that type of thing. So that's why we have it.
Oh, that's exactly what we were kind of looking for all the time.
Speaking of those meetings, I may be remembering this wrong, but it seems like more than half of the meetings were held in Otsego County and not, and the rest in the other 7 counties. How did we get so lucky?
Well, if you see this map, you see Otsego County's the crossroads.
Yeah.
So whether it's Richfield Springs.
So they're regional-wide meetings.
Right. So we have meetings all over. We may do some meetings that we did some this year, Forest Quality Meansville, one was in Madison, one was over in Montgomery County. Well, we tried to go east and west. But what's interesting to me, as long as I've been doing this, Otsego County's been the crossroads because we tend to do them Richfield Springs, we tend to do them Cooperstown, we'll do them Oneonta because we'll draw people typically east and west to come here. So yes, you're getting the benefit from.
And the food is much better at the Otsego.
That's
No
food at the
smaller
Otsego
things.
is not her thing.
Keith, do you train farmers on their spraying? Do they help them get their spraying licenses?
not so much training, they're spraying licenses. We used to do a little more of that, and then I'll make it brief, say DEC changed how they do the testing, so now people just typically go to DEC to take their test to be an applicator. But what we do is provide the recertification training. So if somebody's a certified applicator, in 5 years they have to get 10 recertification credits, and that's the thing that we do on a regular basis. I guess I have the responsibility for, is making sure those folks have access to those pesticide recertification credits, yes.
So you can give the certification, but you can't do the class to give them the license?
Well, no, because in a sense, the license just comes from, at the end of the day, again, I'm kind of making this short, for private applicators, they need to take a test of which they go to a DEC office, take that test, there is manuals available, Cornell has put together. We don't typically, we used to, but we've now stopped maybe providing the testing for the helping them through the test part of that.
The training part.
The training part of it, we typically don't do now.
The thing is, you see more and more farmers hiring outside people to do their spraying, and there's gotta be a cost to that, and I didn't know if it would be cheaper for them to be doing their own and be licensed.
Well, so two ways to look at that. They're hiring in custom because if they have to do it themselves, then it's taking away from time they can be doing something else. It's an opportunity cost. So maybe when they need to be spraying corn, it's also when they need to be out doing their first cutting, of which it's now become more cost effective for them to have it done commercially, and then they can worry about planting corn or making hay when they need to instead of doing that. That's one of those that depends on the farm, because some farms like a little more control, of which they may have a license because they want to go make that application when they feel it needs to be done, and the thing they give up a little bit what's done commercially is, let's face it, there's a list, and you may not get it done as timely. So I guess that's the trade-offs. But the commercial part of it, that they're getting it done, part of that is that they just realize that that's something that they don't want to do. They don't want to maintain their license. They would just as soon have somebody else do the application for them.
I think getting the license is off-putting to some farmers. It requires some booking.
Yeah, it requires a little booking.
Yeah.
But I guess I'd say from the recertification standpoint, getting the 10 credits between cooperative extension or the agribusinesses, I think we make it pretty easy for people to keep up with the recertification part of it.
It requires annual reporting as well, which some people don't like to do.
Yeah, there's some annual reporting to it. They have to say whether they've used a restricted use pesticide and some of those things, and they may choose not to do that, which is, again, why the commercial applicator, they have to keep track of all of that. So it means that farm doesn't have to.
Meg?
I know that one of the things that are keeping a lot of the family farms going is having an off-farm income. I was wondering, do you track the farms that you help? I'm just wondering, you had mentioned some of the things where the income was generated through retired or part-time farmers. If we had to focus in on and concentrate on just, say, farms that were completely making it from A to Z, all by farm produced income, is that a number that you track?
No, I don't know we have any way to track
And
that.
would you want to know how
Well,
few
I'll tell you what,
farms that
if you look
actually
at
was?
the ag census data, you can almost tell there is almost like a double distribution in that when farms get a certain size, they become full-time operators
Okay.
as opposed to part-time. So you can kind of get a feel on that. But I think clearly the reason why a lot of people work off-farm is for health insurance coverage.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that is a huge cost for most
Yeah.
families. Yeah.
I'm from the Health and Education Committee, so we've been talking to Don about your budget shortfall this year, and I'm really glad that you were able to come today, because this gives us a better understanding of what you do, and it's interesting to hear that there is a specific county contribution based on the ag census data. So that is something that will help us to figure out our appropriation moving forward. And to reiterate what Danny said, we're always looking for, data on how what's actually going on. I mean, it's hard, you do a lot of things throughout the counties, but it's good to know what specifically is happening in Otsego. So any data that you can provide, not only on who participates, but like, what are the outcomes? How do people get help? Do they improve? Does it help them? Or, I mean, is it really, are we getting results here? That would be helpful to know too. But I really appreciate what you're doing, and thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
Well, I do think that we need to do a better job on that. I'll just be frank with that. We need to see a little bit more, saying that we can quantify or give narrative on at least some farms as examples of how much better they're doing than they might have otherwise. I can tell you the dairies in particular, those margins are so thin that they have to do everything they can in a competitive environment. And that's one of the advantages the team brings, as well as all of Cornell Cooperative Extension, is our relationship with research staff on campus. I mean, you'll never find two hands held tighter together than research and cooperative extension, because it brings mutual benefit for the researchers as well as it does for these folks and as well as it does for the farmers.
If we get a grant or contract, there's usually somebody, I'm trying to think of when it is, and there's usually somebody at Cornell tied to that. There's a faculty person at Cornell tied to that.
Mr. Barber?
I would just like to make kind of a general comment on the economics of the whole process. The county really benefits from having a farm stay in business, stay profitable, to pay those county the property taxes. There have been several cost of community services studies that show that farmland really only requires about 30 cents per dollar, 30 cents in services that it pays per dollar of taxes. So if those farms can't stay in business and that land converts to residential properties, that property then requires $1.30 in services for every dollar it pays in taxes. So you're going to lose ground the more the farms convert to residential properties. So the more we can do to keep agriculture economically viable and keep that land in production. You keep those farms viable, that land stays in farming, and I think the county really benefits economically from that dynamic.
It's always remembering when we say there's $56 million of product sold, but then if you look back through the census, or you think about budgeting on a farm, think about all the places where those dollars go. Then it's some business in the community, or it's employees. That's what's coming back to the community. And we say what's 3 times, but that turns over 3 times.
2 1/4 an
Yeah, 2 1/4, yeah.
Yeah.
So are you all up on hemp farming?
Can I say this? I've been waiting. I'm surprised that question hasn't come up yet, so thank you for at least...
Well, I know there's going to be one in the northern end of the county, I think, so I just wondered,
So, a couple of things. Certainly, I want to say that one of the things that's happened at Cornell is that they've put together a research program, as industrial hemp's been discussed, to look at things like what are possible varieties for this area, what are some of the best management practices. Here is Kevin Gano's thought on hemp, which is, it's like many other crops that have come along the way. Warm season grass is what, about 10 years ago, we were going to do cellulosic ethanol, we're going to make pellets out of them, and then there was, we take a look at energy prices, and then that just did not continue. I've been working for a number of years on malting barley. It's another one of the crops that have come along. And I preface that because all along the way, you've got to have a market for each one of these new crops that comes along. And that's the thing with industrial hemp. There's an opportunity there with industrial hemp, but it's where are the markets? And usually where the demand seems to be right now is with the CBD oil, which I think is maybe the one you're talking about. Yeah, and so the CBD oil is where somebody's basically growing, I view it this way. You're growing an industrial hemp plant. It's usually like on 4 by 6 foot centers. It's irrigated. You're harvesting just the flowers, and you're harvesting that for the oil. And so it's a very intensive management of that particular, and it's different from the fiber and the grain that we look at also from industrial hemp.
well, I don't, I'm not up on it. I just heard that they're gonna harvest the tops and then harvest the stems, let them dry, and then make them into some kind of pellets.
People are looking to see if they can make something equivalent to a wood pellet out of that. Yeah.
I was going to say, I heard this morning on the radio, on the car radio, there's some group of investors are looking at investing in some kind of facility just outside of Binghamton to do some processing with hemp. Where that's going to go is time will tell.
About the shop vac building down there. where shop
So you've
vac-
heard about it
shop
already?
vac moved out, yep.
And there's been
Yeah.
one talked about over in Madison County. I believe they have some processing
Yeah.
equipment, so it's the infancy of all of this. And then we get
Yeah.
into, well, we've got processing, do we have enough crop? Oh, gee, we've got crop, we have no market. And it's just always that kind of work, that effect of working that back.
Mr. Chairman, are we out of time?
Sorry.
Well, again, I want to thank the team for coming, but I'm going to ask, I'm going to be attending the Health and Education Committee meeting, and I will ask if we can get some supplemental funding. I've been able to defer some costs that I think we can get into and sustain the team for lesser dollars than what I would have anticipated when we made our appropriation, just to get through this year. I'd like to bring that up at the Health and Education Committee. I don't think it's really out of sight if we can do that.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Tony. Thank you. That was a very interesting and obviously all the questions. We just got an early start, so let's take a break now. And before we get into another meeting.
This whole CLA thing just never got traction. We hope there's a
We did a quick and we actually did taste testing just to see if it was there. It went over fabulously, and it was because it was I mean, everybody said it was just like, so there was no flavor impact. I was amazed at it's a Roswell. Yes, anyway. House that we had a diet that enhanced their CLA, butter was much higher in CLA. And then they did, of course, they were on this rats. They did this rat study, and they apparently have some kind of diet.
Yeah, okay, what do you want to do a picture at?
And then they break the butter to one of the
Up here? Yeah, okay. Guys, want to get a picture?
Unbelievable. For Fridays. The highways camp, and he started on Monday, so if we all have a chance, maybe you can pop down and introduce yourself and welcome him to Otsego County. Potholes across the county. I recently came down County Route 42 where they were doing some ditching and some repairs on that, and I was very pleasantly surprised, if you will, to the way they had set the work zone up with the proper signage, proper distances, and the look on their eyes when I kind of stopped and they saw who was coming down was worth its weight in gold. So they did a really nice job for the crew on County Route 42. Crews have been out sweeping, again, getting the roads ready for resurfacing, and again, cleaning ditches. We've also, on the salt shed, we've installed a Tonka block wall along the driveway. This is, of course, in Gilbertsville, and we're working our way to getting a roof on the new salt shed out there as well. Just a couple of quick numbers. We are looking at an estimate of about $3.7 million in our paving and equipment budget this year, expending that out of a total approximate $4 million budget. One of the things of note there was that we did not receive any of what we call our EWR, which is Emergency Weather Relief funding this year. It was zero as opposed to what we had last year, which I feel is detrimental, of course, to highway. We use that money to really gain some headway on our repairs.
Is that because there was no emergency weather, or
No.
we just didn't get the money?
We just did not get the money. In fact, we did. It was due to budgetary. We didn't get
State budget cut.
anything from the state. And we also did not, we put in for around $2 million in bridge repairs for Bridge New York and got 0.
So did we put revenue, that in as revenue in our budget, hoping to get it or not?
I think the
The EWR was in as revenue, the Bridge New York was not.
How much was the EWR in for? Yeah.
I can't remember.
It was around 750,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That was in our budget, that was cut.
Wow,
That was-
okay, thanks.
So that definitely is going to impact our ability to resurface and pave. I think, and the last thing is, or the last two things, and again, this is the Village of Gilbertsville. They have a water main project which is going to be starting soon. So that's going to cause, I won't say some issues, but we're going to be working with them and I guess helping them along, especially when it came to parking, if I remember right. Wasn't that the issue with the water main there? All right, and then Edmonton School, they have a pool project going on too, and they're going to be tying into the water main on County Route 20. So again, we're working with some municipalities as far as some of their projects go, and trying to facilitate flows of traffic and things of that nature. So, under building and grounds, Doug Zerskis reports that the jail renovations are finally moving forward. All the contracts have been sent out last week, and the pre-construction meeting is going to be set for this May 8th at the jail. And we expect to be starting construction hopefully at the end of May, first part of June for the renovations. Tiny Homes has restarted, and we expect to see the contractors starting the construction on the community building by the end of May, with the first 2 tiny homes being delivered in and around the last part of May, which are being constructed out at SUNY Delhi. This coming Monday, the 6th, we have a conference call scheduled between Ellen, myself, and Rob O'Brien with Diamond Management. This would be for the tower lease. We have gone back and forth with the legals on both sides with the contracts. We hope that it's now in a final form where everyone would be able to agree. So I will have some updates pertaining to that. The 242 building in Oneonta came out of our Public Works meeting previously, and we have decided that we as the county, or we as Public Works, suggested that we will not be looking to sell the 242 building. We're going to keep it. That now sets in motion where we are going to be looking at doing some renovations there, starting to do some of the security updates that need to happen. And I think it was just worth noting that we felt as though it needed to have some finalization as far as Public Works was concerned. So that was one of the highlights that came out of our last Public Works meeting. We took in some of the surplus vehicles from various departments, and our next meeting is scheduled for May 16th, 1 p.m. in the second floor conference room. And I will answer any and all questions that anyone would have. Thank you.
Any questions?
I just got a comment. This board needs to do something. We need to set up a designated highway and bridge fund, because the $3.7 million that we get from CHIPS every year is not going to cut it. We're not going to gain a thing. The Pyrestown, or County Route 59 bridge is well over $2 million, and it's got to be done here in the next year or so. We need to do something, and I would say that, I know the bed tax is there. I think we should add another highway use tax, or a designated highway with a bed tax at 4 or 5%. I mean, I travel, I go to different places. They charge you anywhere from 9 to 14% on a room for different things. And we need to look into it. We need to do something, because we're not gaining a thing with $3.7 million every year. And with the winter recovery money gone and everything else, as a board, we should give out serious. And I think these people, the tourists that come here, should pay for a lot of that, because they're the ones that are bringing the buses, they're making more trucks, because you gotta have more deliveries, and they're using the roads, and to come into this county as a tourist spot and have the roads in the condition there is pretty sad. So, you know, I really think we need to take this seriously. And I, as a personal trucker, I have to pay a HUD tax in the state of New York. It's not the HUD tax I pay because I travel the interstate or state road, it's the mileage I put on every road, no matter where I go. I have to pay that every year. So I just think we shouldn't put the burden on the taxpayers of this county. We need to get the tourism. It generates $194 million last year, I believe it was. You know, and I really think it's something we should look into and get serious about. That's my spiel. Because it's not going to get any better. If you have to replace a bridge down in Oneonta over I-88, you're talking $4 or $5 million at least to replace one of those bridges. And where are we going to get that money from? We have to bond it. We shouldn't have to bond a culvert if we know it.
What Keith brought up was discussed in Public Works. I reached out to Ellen to start that process to see what if, running some of the scenarios. And we had a pretty lively discussion in Public Works about it, and I'm not in any disagreement with what Representative McCarty just said. We really need to put some of these plans in place, because we're not going to see the funding, in my opinion, coming from the state.
New York's going to be cutting us more.
Correct.
I mean, I agree with what Keith said, you know, but I really think that we need to have some thoughtful planning behind it to be accountable to our taxpayers. I recommend creating a capital improvement plan. Usually that goes in as part of a budgeting process and is evaluated by the taxpayers and is, you know, kind of approved by them. And so we can describe the sources of funding, the projects we need to do, how much it's going to cost. And I really think that there's a disconnect in the county about how much the public understands how expensive it is to maintain our road network, and how fortunate they are to have a county with such a low tax rate as ours. So I think that capital improvement planning could serve as an educational tool for them and a very thoughtful fiscal planning tool for us.
Yeah, it needs to be part of the whole budget process and budget presentation. Anything else? Thank you, IGA Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Chairman List. We met on April 9th, and we had Barbara Ann Hegan from the Otsego County Chamber of Commerce come. We do allocate $7,000 from our budget to the Chamber of Commerce, and she described the uses of that $7,000 over the years. They've had a series of 7 seminars every year with regards to, they provide them free of charge to business owners in the county that help them do planning, finance options, strategic planning, marketing, legal planning. They work them through the process of becoming a certified minority or women-owned business, and also focus in on digital commerce. That has been their structure for the past number of years. This year they're changing the way they're spending our allocation. $4,000 of the allocation will still go to run the small business seminars, but they're allocating $3,000 to work collaboratively with other organizations in the county with the underlying goal of raising the county's health ranking. So all of the counties are ranked according to health. I'm not sure where we fit in 1 through 62 at this point, but they will be trying to implement some strategies for increasing exercise and healthier eating choices. And I am not 100% sure what it will look like, but Barbara Ann will report back to us and tell us how it went. But the goal is to work to raise the county's health ranking. So that was part 1 of our meeting, and then we went into planning and awarded the RFP for the Hartwick study to Delaware Engineering.
that is, I think that is in the packet for today as, yes, resolution number 143. We also discussed the I-88 study, and already referenced today was the startup meeting for that with McFarland Johnson, the engineering firm who's going to be doing that. We did discuss the purchase of new buses, and they will be 2 35-passenger buses. We also allocated $20,000 from the program income to go towards the tiny home project. And it was a bit of a, we did a lot of discussing on that. There were $54,000 still left in that account. The $20,000 will be used to cover some costs with the tiny home project, still leaving $30,000 or $34,000 of program income remaining. So we're nearing the end on that program income money. It's been a process, and I thank Karen Sullivan for guiding us through it and making sure that we kept all of the momentum going forward on distributing that money and making it all allocated properly according to state regulation. We discussed, and this went on for some detailed and very good discussion on our membership in the Southern Tier 8 and the Mohawk Valley Economic Development Districts. We talked about how projects move through the consolidated funding application, and we talked about the areas of work that exist for industrial development agencies. So we had a really educational and very lively discussion at times as we talked about economic development in the county and how it actually works. We had our second meeting on April 23rd, and we began with a discussion with a presentation from the OCCA intern on energy. She did a 10 or 15 minutes on, maybe it was actually longer than that, but it was on energy and nationwide, just kind of a big 30,000-foot view of energy in this country as well as within our region. Then we discussed county governance. We had been going to have a visitor. He backed out at the last minute, so I invited some department heads to come to just have a discussion, which you may have read about it in the newspapers. It was just a very realistic, just a basic open discussion on if we did this, what would we want to think was a good thing, what might be an obstacle to success, what works in other counties, or it was a very interesting discussion, and we also do realize that we would like to extend that discussion out to include other points of view. I don't know if, I didn't read the article in the paper, but it seems to think that we were very lighthearted in that part of the discussion, but it's a very serious aspect of the discussion. And we would like to hear from people who would like to discuss alternatives to county governance, either within the paradigm that we're existing or something different. I do have another workshop set up with Stephen Aquario from the New York State Association of Counties. He's going to come on the 25th of June at 10 o'clock. And I know this kind of branches away from county governance, but it kind of all ties back to county governance. He's bringing the economic development people who've had much success in Saratoga County. So we're branching out a little bit from just county governance, but it sort of ties back to it to see how other counties accomplish these things and what strategies we might want to copy or implement or might work here in Otsego County. So I'd like to just take this opportunity to invite everyone to come on the 25th of June at 10. They will be here from NISAC. And our regular next meeting is May 7th at 9 a.m. And any questions?
Any questions?
I guess more of a statement, the Chamber of Commerce, if I'm getting this correct, is taking money that we've kind of given them to provide training to businesses and stuff and gonna focus on overall health of county
Workers in the small businesses.
And how are they coordinating with agencies that we have a mental health agency where they should be coordinating if they want to get people in the jobs, and also with Heidi Bond's group, I mean, they just did a health expo, so it seems like the money is, they could contribute and have something there at the, we just had a health expo, did they participate in that? What did they use for those things?
I don't know.
Maybe the next thing, that's a question I had on.
And I would hope that when we have Barbara Ann come back, we can ask those questions and determine our allocation going forward. Do they want to refocus on the small business development, or maybe we'll find out that this was very interactive with other agencies, and I would be very interested to hear what kind of results.
I think we'll ask at the Health and Ed meeting, was there any outreach from them to you on this, public health and mental health both report there, so I would think they should come there. But it just seems redundant, and the message just should be coordinated.
Well,
I believe there's some coordination, and it also had tied in a little bit to the push from the various recovery agencies or addiction treatment agencies in terms of recovery workforces, and but they thought to expand it out just from addiction treatment to just total overall health of employees within the county as a way to, first of all, to have higher productivity, but also to attract a higher health index for our county, a higher health ranking is a way to attract people
It's a
here.
laudable goal, and I'm just wondering who's going to pick up the stuff that they were doing for new businesses.
Oh, but they were still going to be doing
with the
those.
same allocation, they're going to do the same amount of stuff?
Well-
Because they had, used to charge for it, then they weren't charging for it, and I think that opened access to more people to go to these
Right.
classes. So
Right.
now, are they, if they're still going to do it, are they going to go back to charging for it?
They're going to
Because-
continue to not charge is
That is-
my take on
that was
it.
our understanding.
Yeah, and she's leveraging other funds. There's a grant that I cannot remember the name of right
I don't
now.
remember it either, but she is working with LEAF, was one of the agencies that was discussed, and Fordu. So they are going that, they are reaching out beyond just within the chamber, so.
But we can encourage her to make sure she's reaching out with.
And not duplicating too much effort.
And our second meeting is on the 28th, is that correct?
The 20,
20,
Oops, sorry,
whatever
I'm
the
wrong.
Tuesday is it the 25th?
28.
My phone was turned off, I couldn't make it come off.
2/8.
Yep, 2/8.
Okay, so I think that's the day that Steve is coming.
no, that's 25th, yeah.
Oh, that's right, I went 1 month out, sorry.
Okay.
Too many things here. Yeah, May 28th is the governance IGA meeting. Yes, May 28th at 9. And the other one is at May 7th at 9.
What's name's coming in June, right?
And Steve is coming in June, yes. June 25th.
Any other questions? Public safety, Representative, I'm skipping over, human services.
Well, we didn't have a quorum, so it's probably appropriate.
It's a very quick report.
It's a very quick report. We had some people out of town and unavoidable last-minute conflicts. Didn't have a quorum, but we were able to pull together a meeting just before admin on Friday the 19th, thanks to Adrienne coming all the way up from Oneonta for like a 10-minute meeting and going home again to make a quorum. So thank you very much for that. And at that meeting, we proclaimed May as Foster Family Recognition Month, as you saw this morning, also as Infant Safe Sleep Month in Otsego County. And we did some contract with Opportunities for Otsego regarding Code Blue issues, and we filled some vacant positions, and that's it. Our next meeting is May 13th at 1:30.
Monday, May
Me too.
13th.
It was kind of nice, yeah. It's like I didn't mind driving out. Other than that.
Questions?
Well, I did have one about that Code Blue. I mean, it looks like that was for last winter's season that we're funding now. Is that what we're doing? I don't know what number that is.
I don't know.
147.
Number it is.
Anytime with the cold blue. Anytime with the cold what? Cold blue.
It says October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2019. So that Code Blue already happened for during that period.
Yeah,
It's not gonna have any in the summer.
There are complex
Yeah.
funding issues with that in terms of the money goes from here and to there and to there, but now it has to go from here over there and to here. Opportunities is part of that.
There's also
That's kind of imposed from outside.
Well, I guess my question was, did they provide those services this past winter then? And we're just trying to catch up right now, is that what's going on?
Just a question of the funding.
Okay, all right, that's kind of what I thought. Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Public safety, Representative Frazier.
Mr. Chair, we met on April 16th, the sheriff came in, we approved some hiring, some training, transfers of money, so we purchased some, have to purchase new radios because we're encrypting the law channel. We also approved him purchasing a thermal imaging device. The sheriff updated us on, we have our addiction recovery services staff members is in the jail now doing individual and group counseling. That's something we've been trying to get in there for a few years now. Hopefully that pays dividends. He spoke about the jail renovations and the commission has to finally approve everything that we're going to do. Our public defender that we recently hired is on the job effective the 22nd, I believe it's 22nd. Yeah, 22nd, the day after Easter. He's been meeting with all the stakeholders, everyone he's going to be interacting with, attempting to fill any vacancies and working with people. Dan Naughton from probation come in, we approved the purchase of some ballistic vests for them. Denise Oliver, CIC, we approved training for her. We also, this month, the chair, the DA, the sheriff, myself, many people from Bassett attended the open house for her new exam room. Very well attended, and the media represented well too. Rob O'Brien from 911 came in, he wanted approval to fill dispatcher position, he wanted to go through some training for himself. Emergency Services, Art Klingler came in, spoke of fire extinguisher training. He also asked to fill a vacant funded deputy fire coordinator that's going to be due to Carl Frank from Unadilla. He's been there 37 years. He's decided he's going to retire. We'll be hiring a new one. He also gave an update on the training center. The RFP went out, 13 different companies requested information on it. None of them bid. We're looking at why they didn't bid, what we need to do to structure that, so we can get some appropriate bids. I know we started with 6 and 7 already, and there are a couple of glitches that we overlooked, I think, and we'll put that back out. We also spoke of AMR, who took over CMT. They're going to be critical going forward with some other EMS. We have had several conversations on our EMS response times. John Neal came in, and Dan Naughton and the sheriff also joined him, and we had a long conversation about the criminal justice, the reforms on the criminal justice reforms recently enacted, and how it's going to affect Ellen Tacoma was there also. So one of the major changes is that John, as a district attorney, anything that he's going to prosecute, there's a discovery that he is supposed to release to all the defense attorneys. In the past, John averages 150 to 200 discovery releases a year, and the defense attorney needs to come and ask and request it. John's got 20 days to release everything. Well, this has changed now. Anything that John, even some minor infractions, misdemeanors, he has to prepare the discovery for everyone that he intends to prosecute. He says it could be over 3,000, and the timeline shrank. They don't have to ask for it. 15 days after they're arraigned, he has to be ready to provide that discovery. He says it's going to be a huge unfunded mandate. He believes he's going to have to put on more staff, at least an ADA. He says it can't be just that discovery disclosure has to be certified by an attorney. It can't just be the support staff doing it. So we will probably be hiring one, if not two. He wants one full-time, probably ADA. The sheriff, said basically the same thing. His statement was it's going to tie up resources and make New York less safe. All of the body cam has to be released. That takes about 20 minutes for every traffic ticket that they write. It's going to be 20 minutes of somebody downloading and providing that. So there's a huge thing. And Dan Naughton, with the cashless bail, there's probably going to be more monitoring, electronic monitoring. That is all on the county's dime. That everyone from renting it every single day, the monitoring, that's the cost, $8 a day. That will be on the county. So we are expecting this month, 911 sent out a request for an ambulance, and it had to go down to call us 8 times. 3 different counties, and we still didn't get anyone there. So, I mean, that's the extreme, but Rob is going to be providing everybody with data. He went to the town supervisors meeting, dinner here this last month. They spent over an hour discussing it. They're coming up, lots of different proposals. I don't think it's anything the county can mandate. We absolutely do not want to replace the volunteer service because a lot of places are very good. But I think there's going to be a hybrid something and we have to get buy-in from everybody, I believe. And it may not be the same in every part of the county, but I think from a provider standpoint, we can do better and we really should. So there's a long conversation going on, and I invite everyone to be involved in it and talk to your town supervisors, your mayors, and see if they have anything. We meet again on May 10th at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock?
I got 12.
12 o'clock, yes.
Well, he's just doing that to see if we're listening.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to add to what Ed said about the release of discoverable information. It's believed it's going to lead to a lot of dismissals in cases. Because you're just not going to be able to
Meet the timelines.
Dismissed.
Well, John said he was going to, John said he's gonna do everything he can to make sure that the level of prosecution doesn't drop. Because he feels if you stop prosecuting the minor crimes, that it's gonna escalate. So he, in his mind, he doesn't want to change what he's doing. He wants to continue prosecuting. Everything he prosecuted this year, last year, he wants to prosecute next year. So that's an admirable goal. Whether that may happen, I'm not sure.
He's gonna be within constraints. I mean, it's just.
I get it.
You go
He
from-
understands that
Right,
too.
you go from 200 to 300 discoveries up to, 3,200.
And then you have to get that information from the police department and the
Right.
officer who made the arrest, so he
A lot
doesn't
of
even have
coord-
control over that part.
A lot of coordination.
Yeah. It's something that really NICEAC should be looking at because it's a
Oh, they have-
huge
they are.
undertaking.
No, they
They
are.
They have, there's a
They've
white
got
paper, there's a nice white paper.
Maybe.
When do those new requirements come into place?
You know,
January 1. But John says in order to, because, prosecution from December or November may go into December, he needs to probably hire someone this fall.
And we probably, maybe look at the jail renovation because there won't be anybody in there. They'll all be released on cashless bail and they'll all,
That's a good
our population was dropping before, but this should probably.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the sheriff said though, it costs the same to have personnel in there if there's 100 inmates as opposed to if there's 30 inmates, so.
Because of the
we're not
design of our
really
jail,
saving
we should
money.
be looking at the design so that one person can.
You still have to keep the
supervise.
lights and heat on.
Yeah. so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about the renovation that we're doing,
No, I
so
know.
that for a smaller population.
Well.
There might be one way we're closing down.
The other problem is we're under constraints and under pressure from Commission on Corrections for that to do that, so.
All boils down to unfunded mandates.
Yeah.
Huge.
More and more.
Health and Ed.
For this month, just hit the highlights. Coroners were in. 2 newly elected coroners went for training at the Otsego in March. Cornell Cooperative, you heard today, and they came in with the cup out for $39,000 to maintain that position. You heard some of their story today. The Department of Health, the Health Expo was held April 5th and 6th in Oneonta, and while they're still gathering data, the attendance was up 60 to 70%, with about 50% of those people being first-time attendees. They had between 2,000 and 2,800 total attendees. They handed out a lot of radon kits, car seats, bike helmets, 250 different types of health screens were done. And 170 people were trained to administer Narcan. Wow. So that's a lot of people. And Alex Corzafava was in. He had attended the Emergency Preparation Conference and Summit in St. Louis and attended presentations on hepatitis A, which is growing as a result of the opioid crisis control. And so it's important to get the high-risk population vaccinated. Preschool rates for service providers are going up $10 per 30-minute session, so that's an additional cost there. And Tammy McDonald was in from the Office of the Aging. This month is Older Americans Month, and I remind you that the volunteer luncheon that they held every year for OFA is Wednesday, May 15th. It's really nice to see some of the people that help us out a lot in these things. I've gone now for a bunch of years, and it's really nice to talk with all these folks. The Sheriff Department is now contracting with Trinity for meals, and so there'll be some issues, probably some rough spots along the way, but they're going to be using a central kitchen to prepare the meals, and 2 of the 3 meals they serve now, 2 of the 3 meals that they'll be serving will now be cold meals as opposed to hot meals. Community Services, Martha Quackenbush appeared. There's a resolution today to declare this Mental Health Awareness Month, and Children's Mental Health Awareness Day is May 9th. And over the years, those of us who've been on the committee, they talk about the increasing population of children with mental illness and mental health issues, so it's good. We entered into the record a letter from Albert Cologne noting his concerns with the RSS housing development. And you might have heard about that in the city of Lebanon. So we entered that into the record. And committee will meet again Monday, May 13th at 9 a.m. Same day as Human Services in the morning. Hopefully we'll have a quorum for both.
Any questions?
This may be a level of detail if you to know, but the $10 increase in the hourly wage of related service providers for preschoolers with disabilities. Am I on the right track so far?
Yep.
Is that $10 an hour that we provide, or typically that's been half state, half county funding? So is it really $20 an hour and state's kicking in half?
I don't
or-
believe she
Yeah,
did
there's
it.
a
I don't know if
yeah,
she mentioned it
call.
at that meeting. So
Yeah.
you have to get that detail from Show Strong.
Because that's it. The lots of kids go without services because they can't find providers. And one of the
Exactly.
big reasons is that the state's
Doesn't fit.
scale is so terrible, no one wants to work for it.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Swett, Representative McCarty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met on April 16th. Karen requested that we have to change the household hazardous waste days due to scheduling of the companies. It'll be September 20th in Unadilla and the 21st in Cooperstown at the Meadows. Also, if anyone not-for-profit's interested in any paint, you call 607-547-4225. Jordan Clements was in and gave quite a lengthy report, and I'm sure you all have it in your minutes, so you can read it. We went over the solid waste reports for the month. We had 2,598 tons of solid waste, and we ended up with a credit from Casella of $1,192. We had 293 tons of recyclables, clean recyclables, which are now going all to Sierra, right? No,
Taylor's.
Taylor's. And so we're saving $30 a ton on that. We discussed the climate community program, noting that we had to set up a, next step was to set up a task force. We named Mr. Lappin as coordinator, and Representative Kupnik is on that, volunteered to be on that committee, and Tammy Harris to start out. Karen gave an update of the PACE financing and the changes that have been made to the program, which includes the county is no longer the financial host of the funding, so no more billing for the county and no more taking any risks on that program. So that's kind of good news in my opinion. Karen attended a composting meeting on April 9th. She also gave an update on the DEC, what was held regarding the state upcoming Beyond Waste program, which was on the 3rd of March 27th. And we have to apply for a new permit for the Northern Transfer Station, which we changed to 6 days a week instead of 4. Gave an update on the land site oversight meeting down in Montgomery County, I believe. And we had discussion about the new plastic bag laws in case we want to charge a fee for using plastic bags. Also, there was discussion concerning the recycling bin in Unadilla, as there's no one monitoring it as required in the agreement. Karen asked approval to remove the Unadilla recycling bin off the county's list, noting that people in that area could go to WRE. And we did approve that. We went into executive session. We came back out. The committee agreed to grant permission for New York State DEC, subject to review of a DEC access agreement to access county property located at 108-114 Fair One Road to do a primary investigation of the former town of Otsego landfill to do some testing for contamination, I believe. We meet again on May 14th at 9 a.m. at the Meadows.
Any questions?
So Keith, just one quick correction, is Tammy Harris is the CSC coordinator and Gary and I are helping.
I thought you were, it says here that you were the coordinator.
Oh, really? No.
Careful what you raise your hand for.
I have too many
I don't
commitments
think that's what the resolution
as it is. I'm pretty sure Tammy Harris is the coordinator.
We'll put that force to this.
I did want to add something really quick. Related to the Chesapeake Bay total maximum daily load, the New York State has released its watershed implementation plan, basically its action step guide on how it's going to meet the EPA's mandated cleanup goals. And now there are, what are known as local planning targets, meaning that local jurisdictions are expected to meet, nutrient reduction targets for not only the agricultural sector, but also the developed sector too. So that means stormwater reductions. And it's interesting in how it's broken up. For ag sector, they're looking at the sub-watershed level, basically the Susquehanna River sub-watershed and the Chemung River sub-watershed. But for the stormwater targets, they're going county by county. So Otsego County now has stormwater pollution reduction targets that we are expected to meet. And now that falls out of Soil and Water's purview, since they deal largely with non-point source pollution, it's within DEC and our purview as the county to help meet those targets. So that's going to be an increasing challenge moving forward. There is a commenting window open that I believe ends in June. And so it'll be important to state that this could put an additional financial strain that a lot of our 19 counties in the Bay watershed might not be able to meet, and a technical burden on us that we may not be able to meet. So I just thought I'd bring that up because I'm commenting on that as part of wearing my other hat.
Right. Is that something that you're able to develop for us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Even the money?
I wish. I can harass them as New York's representative on the local government advisory committee.
Is it grant money to do that stormwater?
Yeah, there is. They
I
can't.
know Richard was talking about it.
So Danny, I know that when towns, planning boards and so forth go through a new project, they have big, thick storm wastewater guidelines that they have to follow. So each project would be reviewed as it goes forward, but are you talking about revamping existing infrastructure or what types of?
It's going to be just like working with DEC. DEC will help us, but it's just going to be establishing that data sharing connection with DEC, because DEC reviews those stormwater pollution prevention plans. Mm-hmm. They make sure that no water, as little water runs off the project site as possible. Ideally, it's zero. But they collect all of that data. But for our purposes, we want to make sure that we're achieving our burden or figuring out where we stand, because as it traditionally goes, all of our municipalities are like case by case, each SWIP by SWIP, and they say, okay, this one looks good, and then DEC keeps track of it broadly. But since now we're having our name attached to a target, we want to make sure that we just keep track of what's going on and just get a better understanding of how it might affect us. I think right now is just figuring out what's happening before we try to
Establish some sort of a baseline?
Or just understanding of what that will mean, and seeking clarification from DEC and as to what they expect the county's role to be in the stormwater reductions.
Any other questions? Thank you. Admin, Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Chairman Bliss. So as usual, many of the things that happened to admin have already been reported on as we've gone through the reports this morning and afternoon. The first thing that I would like to do is to pull resolution number 158 from the consent agenda. It's a duplication of a resolution that was passed in February with regards to putting a piece of property in the Section 8 role. Andrew Chrisman requested that we do that, and I understand that with the consent of the board, prior to discussion of the consent agenda, we can withdraw that resolution at this time. Is that correct?
Admin committee, with consent of the.
Oh, the admin committee. Okay, so thank you on that point of order. So administration committee, we do have a quorum here today, so I would ask that we remove that resolution number 158.
So moved. So moved.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of removal?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No abstaining. So resolution 158 is off the consent agenda. Thank you. One thing that we did authorize in the administration committee was the application of any consolidated funding application projects. So the county has to approve them. So we just did a blanket approval. So any projects that are submitted on the behalf of the county, they have been pre-approved, like given a green light. We did this, and now we can, we don't have to act any further to authorize an application. I mean, we have to authorize what it is if someone's doing it on our behalf. I'm getting down into the weeds, Karen, I know, but she's on the consolidated funding application. We approved at admin a blanket approval or blanket permission.
We had a public hearing, and with a public notice, we incorporated all aspects of micro enterprise, small business, public facilities, any generalized application. It was a formality just to say, if the county has an idea and they want to move forward, see if they are covered by that.
We now can
hold a public hearing, yeah.
Thank you, Karen. We did pass the DMC contract for tourism funding, and at some date closer to the budget time, we will have that brought forward for full board approval, and hopefully the chair will sign once we do approve as a full board. We had highway and treasurer. Of note, the treasurer's office has notified the committee, and each of us, I have gotten an email, that there are 158 parcels on the foreclosure list at this point. These are for 2016 unpaid balances. And just for the record, I would like to say, the payment can be made until the 30th of June. Then the balance plus 15% may be paid in July, but no payments will be accepted from the 1st of August 2019 forward. We transferred funds. We discussed the possibility of having a fleet manager stipend for the county. We sent the back for more information before we want to go ahead and make that kind of a decision. We don't want to duplicate efforts, and we certainly don't want to have to pay for duplicating efforts. So that's something that we're going to be finding out a little bit more about before we decide anything about a stipend for fleet management. We opened the bid on Rose's Hill. It did not pass out of committee. Hopefully we will revisit that another day. Our next meeting is Thursday, May 23rd at 9 a.m.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Special committees, negotiations. Performance review and goal setting.
Again, we had no meeting this month. Due to unexpected last-minute conflicts. One of our department heads weren't able to come to our meeting yesterday, and because of systemic issues, system of preparing for and moving forward to the evaluations, the other two weren't either. So they've all been rescheduled, and our next evaluation will be on June 4th.
Technology and strategic, I'm sorry, I have a question.
No, that's all right. No, I was going to
He was happy that it was short.
Safety committee.
We'll go to safety.
Yes. Now?
Since you're talking, just keep it going.
Okay. We had our safety committee meeting, not this month, but last month. I wasn't able to meet or come to last month's meeting. And we discussed the training that had taken place for county employees and municipal employees. It's going well. One of the things that came up was some of the new mandates with training such as sexual harassment training and the like. That applies to elected officials as well. So we have to somehow make provisions for everybody to take that training. We're hoping that it's going to be provided online. I don't know if it will yet, but we're looking at that.
Sounds good. Any questions? Any discussion about the security issues at 242?
Not in detail because I don't think at that time that the announcement had been made, so.
Okay. Thank you. Technology and strategic planning, Representative Marietta's not here. Anybody else have anything to say about that? I'll meet tomorrow.
We have a meeting tomorrow. We had a meeting in March, but.
Not in April.
Not in April.
Okay. Very good. Any other reports from any special assignments? Hearing none, we will move on to consent agenda. Got a motion to dispense with the reading of all resolutions?
So
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any representative wishing to remove a resolution from the consent agenda? We have one already, 158. Any others? 140. 145. Any others? Hearing none, a motion to act on the consent agenda.
Also make that motion.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, you have to.
Frazier?
Yeah.
Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Aye. Stammel? Kennedy?
Yes.
Overecker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta? McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Koenig?
Aye.
Martini? Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
5,315 ayes, 0 noes, 913 absent. Consent agenda has passed. So we will move on to resolution 145.
Resolution 145, authorizing chair of the board to enter into agreements for professional engineering services for various county roads and bridges for the year 2019. Overecker, McCarty, Wilbur, Farwell, Lappin.
Second.
Second, Gary. Yes, who pulled and why?
I pulled it. I want to move to amend Resolution 145, number 4, which is Spectrum Engineering, which has been sold and the name is changed, and amended to J, capital letters JMT of New York Incorporated.
JMT is in town?
Yes.
Address remain the same?
Yes.
Okay, motion, second to amend.
Does it have to be on the committee?
Just be.
Just the person? Then I will second.
That amendment can be probably a voice vote. The amendment can be a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Now we will vote on 145 as amended. Motion?
We don't need that.
Oh, yeah, or second. Roll call vote.
Frazier?
Aye.
Farwell? Aye. Clark? Aye. Stammel? Kennedy?
Aye.
Overecker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta? McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Koenig?
Aye.
Martini? Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
5,315 ayes, 0 noes, 913 absent. Resolution 145 as amended is approved. So 158 is gone. So any late amendments or not any late business?
I had one thing, I don't know if that'll work. I've been asked to invite all the board members to Relay for Life of Otsego County. It's May 18th at Wilbur Park in Milford. Opening ceremonies are at 4 p.m. and fireworks at dusk. So you're all invited to the field. There is a chicken barbecue and
Fireworks and chicken?
May 18th.
Say no to that.
Don't say anymore.
Yeah, I expect you to be there.
All right, only because you invited me.
Because you only get one wing with a half a chicken.
Well, I'll let you know.
Sage, you see what I put up with down here?
Very nice.
Can I get on?
Anything else?
Everybody else. Move to adjourn. We bicker.
So moved. Favor?
Anybody opposed?
Okay. Thank you.